afternoon. We are live. You've joined us on the Blue Plate Special. I'm Andy Andrews. We're broadcasting all over the world, or at least to the corner of Canal Road and 161. We are glad you're here today. The shirt is courtesy of Sandollar Lifestyles and Wanda Parson, hey, from Tennessee. People are already lined up, ready to watch. We got a good show for you, and I'm ready for it because I wasn't. We didn't do one last week, and so it just seems odd to be back. Shanda Danner, how you doing? Dr. Charles Lowry joined. Seriously, I guess you are the Dr. Charles Lowry. But anyway, I'm glad you're here. We're broadcasting on what? On wisdomharbor.com, on Facebook, on LinkedIn for all the people wearing ties, X, Instagram, Cox Cable, YouTube. Not really Cox Cable. Who is that? Oh, Sandra Tanner said, Andy came by Saturday to get a book while at the car show and didn't realize y'all were closed. Yep, we are. We're closed on the weekends. And we generally like to close when there's a car show. Not because we don't like cars and not because we don't like shows. It's just because we can't get in here. I mean, it drives me nuts. I mean, we'll come in on a Friday and they've got everything blocked off. I don't know how they get all the cars in here because our cars can't hardly get in. But anyway, Shirley Bigham, wonderful to see you in person. Where's Shirley? I thought you were seeing me in person. Fit Champion, love the shirt. Thank you very much. Thank Sandollar Lifestyles. You know, it's just like, we like to say our host is dressed by Sandollar Lifestyle. Because, you know, remember when you were watching game shows and they go, Monty Hall's Fashions by Botany 500. We're trying to kind of do that, you know. So Rick and Kelly from Nashville, hello. Hello, glad you're here. Office full of people at the Pentagon. We're glad you're having your lunch with us. Rose and Addie joined. I have not been here in a week, and it's been one of the craziest weeks. Matt and I went to Nashville, and so what did we do first? We spent a day with Gordon Mote at Gordon's house, and we were recording for Wisdom Harbor. Gordon Mote, if you don't know, is the blind keyboard player he's like the #1 session player in the world. He's been on over 100 #1 hits, over 80 or 90 more that hit the top 10. Gordon is unbelievable, and so we filmed a bunch of stuff. Oh, okay. What is that? All right. He's Lee Greenwood, Tricia Yearwood, Tanya Tucker, Alan Jackson, Carrie Underwood, Blake Shelton, Brad Paisley, Lionel Richie, Bob Seger, and the Gaither Vocal Band. That's true. But also Mick Jagger and Willie Nelson and everybody. Even Elvis. When I saw Elvis on his resume, I said, Gordon, you're not old enough to have worked with Elvis. He said, yeah, I know, but every time they remaster one of his projects, they call me and I come in. And so he did the duet album they did with Elvis. Gordon did that. He said they put the headphones on him, and so he's listening to the original session and playing with it. And he said he heard one time where Elvis said, hey, get that camera out of here. Looking around. But anyway, we did Gordon all day, and then the next day, Leslie Plotz, first time from Kansas. We're glad you're here. The next day, Matt did something while I went with the Gaithers, and we recorded an entire homecoming event. Okay, now that's going to come out to be 90 minutes to 2 hours. Do you know how long we were in there? 10 hours. 10 hours recording that. there were 250 artists. I mean, Sandy, Patty, everybody. I mean, everybody. The Oak Ridge Boys, everybody was there. And I told Polly when I was talking to her, I said, we've just had our first break. She said, how long have you been in there? I said, 5 hours. 5 hours before our first break. We did 10 hours, one break. And she said, aren't y'all tired? And I'm like, well, we are, but, you know, what are we going to say? Bill's 90 years old. He's leading the thing, and he ain't got to go to the bathroom. He ain't got to get a Coca-Cola. And so what are we going to go? I'm tired, you know. Sheesh. But that went great. That was a lot of fun and amazing to see just who's there. And these people are unbelievable. Then what was the next day? The next day, we got up at East God o'clock to go film a Bet You Didn't Know with a new contributor. Her name is Joy Randall, and you guys who are subscribed to Wisdom Harbor are going to love her. But she is in nursing school. She's 24, 25 years old, and so to fit into her schedule, Matt and I had to get up at 4:30 and get in the bus and go down there, set up, and then Joy came in, knocked out 3 Bet You Didn't Knows, and then we went to Ben Isaac's studio, his recording studio, which taking Matt there for me was like taking a 6-year-old to the zoo. You know, I mean, Matt was just, and Matt and Ben started talking. I didn't have any clue what they're talking about. I don't understand. Yeah, I mean, I can do the words, but I can't do the dials. And, you know, they're asking, what is that? No, that microphone costs $35,000. I'm like, good grief. But that was an interesting. And then we went to Philip and Tina and had dinner, and I ran into the HarperCollins people at dinner. And then the next day we got up and we started south, but we went east a good bit, went to Piedmont City, and spent a good bit of the afternoon at Piedmont City High School filming the teachers and some students, the custodian, the art teacher, just as a kind of a documentary thing for Wisdom Harbor that we're putting together. Sandy Atkins, happy Tuesday from El Salvador. Is it hot there? I bet it is. But anyway, we did that, and then we got home, and I thought, whew. And Matt and I both kind of drug in here on Friday morning, and we did some stuff. Daphne Cook, hey, hope you and Jeff are doing good. So we drug in Friday morning. We worked all day, and I thought, man, I'm glad to have the weekend off because Polly had left town, and I'm going to be in the house by myself. And at 6 o'clock, I get called that Adam, our youngest son, Adam and his girlfriend are headed to the emergency room. Okay, so I go and meet up, and Adam's having appendicitis. And so they do a CAT scan. They determine, yes, he's got to have the surgery. And 2 things you need to know about Adam. If you didn't know this about Adam, Adam's 23. He's like maybe the most naturally funny person I've ever been around. I mean, he's definitely top 5. He's just funny. And the other thing about Adam is he has a pain tolerance that is through the roof. Not me. I'm a weenie. I mean, you know, if it hurts, I mean, you know, but Adam, even when he was a little kid, I remember turning around and Adam was 5 steps up on the staircase and I had come down. Adam was like 3 years old, and I turned around and said, come on, buddy. And he goes, whoo, and dove out and hit that hardwood floor, and that head went boom on that. I thought, oh my God, he's dead. And Adam looked up and went, that hurt. And then just kind of kept going on. And Polly and I used to talk about, man, this must be what, you ever watch football, watch the NFL or college, and you think, how is this guy even getting up? How is he getting up, much less playing more? And we thought, this must be what Adam, they must have the same pain tolerance. And so Adam's up there, he's in pain, but he's not screaming like I would have been. I'd have been screaming. And Adam is just like, you know, are you hurting? Yes, sir. How bad? It's pretty bad. Okay. Adam said, you know, I've always wanted to get my appendix out, but who has the time? Like, you are nuts. And so then the nurse comes in and she says, how's your pain? And he said, 8.5. And I'm like, really? You don't look like you're hurting that bad. He said, well, she said, let me ask you this. Is it hurting worse than it was an hour ago? He said, yes, ma'am. And she says, well, don't you think we need to take some pain medicine? Because they've given him Toradol, which if you've ever had Toradol, I think it's water. Toradol just doesn't work. You know, oh, let me give you some Toradol. Whew, thanks. That'll be $40. And it doesn't work. But they gave him Toradol, and it didn't work. And so she said, don't you think we should give you something stronger? He said, I don't want anything stronger. I said, hey, buddy, listen, with your pain tolerance thing, you can get in trouble because you could have something explode in you and you'd go, eh. And so let's take care of this before it gets bad. He goes, okay, all right. So what would you give me? And the lady said, we'll give you morphine. He said, okay. She said, have you ever had morphine? He said, I have not. And, you know, Adam works on, and Adam said, does this show up in drug tests? She goes, well, yeah. Adam says, can't do it then. She said, what? And so Adam works on boats. He works down here, you know, fishing. And the association of these charter boat fishermen, they're in a series that they can random drug test. And so so Adam's like, nope. And they said, no, this is like a hospital thing. This is fine, you know. And so he's, okay. So they put it in. He's just kind of laying there. And I said, how are you now? And he said, well, I'm still hurting, but I'm a lot happier about it. And then here's the last one I'll tell you. Oh, no, wait. Polly calls, and Polly is like really concerned. You know, she's 500 miles away, and her baby is in the hospital, you know. And so we got her on the speakerphone in the room. He's been admitted to a room now. We got her on the speakerphone, and Emily's sitting there, and Adam's in the bed, and I'm sitting there on the speakerphone. And Emily says, I'm going to go to Publix while Mr. Andy's here and you know, get stuff set up for Adam at home. And so Polly said, well, when you're at Publix, make sure you get some ginger ale and sherbet. And I look over at Adam, and Adam goes, I didn't say anything. But then when we hang up, Adam says, you know what? Ever since I've been a little kid, if I had a stubbed toe, a skinned knee, or a broken arm, Mom wanted to feed me sherbet and ginger ale. So I don't know what it is about that, but I agree. She has been very consistent with the sherbet and ginger ale. Then when we were checking out, the nurse is giving him his final things. And she says, we need to know if the pain gets really bad. We need to know if this happens. We need to know if this happens. And we need, be informed of any uncontrollable vomiting. And Adam said, isn't all vomiting uncontrollable? I guess, I guess it is. All right, let me tell you what we're going to talk about today, now that we've already talked for a while. We're going to talk about mistaken phrases. I'll tell you what put me on this is I was watching a ball game. I was watching the Vanderbilt ball game the other day where Vanderbilt, it seems like I'm living in another dimension when I say that Vanderbilt hung 70 points on somebody. I mean, that doesn't even sound, that sounds so alien to me. Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has been the Washington Generals of the SEC for so long. It's just like hard to believe that they're like, 4-0 right now. But anyway, so we're watching this, and the announcer, which you'd think these guys would be good with the English language, the announcer says, Vanderbilt is setting an uncharted course. They're in uncharted waters now. That drives me crazy because the word is uncharted. It's not uncharted. You're not in uncharted waters. You're in uncharted waters. And I don't mind hearing that from one of my buddies, but somebody's getting paid $5 million to talk. Come on, get it right. So I thought, what are some of these other things? What are some other ones? And so I really dissected 5 or 6 of them, but then I listed a few more. So here's some phrases that people get wrong all the time. Now, not us, not the people in our studio audience, and I know nobody watching gets these wrong, but these other people get these things wrong. One is cold slaw. It's not cold slaw. It's C-O-L-E, coleslaw. It's not cold slaw. Coleslaw derives from the Dutch word koolsla. This is a version of kool salad, which is cabbage salad in English. And since coleslaw, like most salads, is traditionally served cold, calling it cold slaw is not really inaccurate, but neither is it a new mistake. The word cold slaw was already in print by the late 1700s. Not to mention that it might occasionally help to clarify cold because, believe it or not, hot thing. Sly is a variant as a clean-shaven face. But bold-faced has existed since around the same time as Shakespeare used it in Henry VI. And if you're telling an obvious lie, chances are good you're doing it with a pretty bold face. So it's also possible that people these days assume the bold face in question is a font. That people might think that that's a font. A lie would be printed in bold, and that would be especially apparent, a bold-faced lie. So while bald-face is correct, it's hard to say that bold-face isn't accurate. So we're not going to take a lot of points away for somebody using bold-faced lie. Now this one is kind of the same genre where you can't really take away points. But when people say, man, I've got hunger pains, that is incorrect. It is not hunger pains. It is hunger pangs. P-A-N-G-S. But hunger pains is an apt description for the cramps you get when you're starving. Technically, they're called hunger pangs. But the word pang, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, describes a sudden, sharp spasm of pain which grips the body or part of it. So a pang is a pain. Grammar Nazi. Because she's, we've got the boys are soon to be 26 and 23, and she's still on them. And she's on me too, but I just try to think but she'll still get me. She's the grammar Nazi. It occurred to me one time when one of the boys called Mom a grammar Nazi, it occurred to me that back in the 30s and early 40s, when Hitler was doing speeches, that he had speech writers, and those speeches were written down, and somebody would edit and correct them, and I guess that really was a grammar Nazi. All right, so how about on tender hooks? There's no such thing as a tender hook. What you mean is tenter hooks. In the late medieval period and beyond, you would stretch your newly milled cloth over a wooden frame, and that wooden frame was called a tenter. And you stretched it over so the material wouldn't shrink as it dried. So tenter hooks were the hooks or bent nails that held the cloth in place. And a piece of cloth on tenter hooks is in a state of tension, which explains why we say we're on tenter hooks when we're experiencing a tense anticipation or suspense. But since people these days are generally more familiar with the word tender than tenter hooks a lot of times gets called tender hooks, which isn't a word at all. I mean, it isn't even a word. But if it were, it might describe hooks made to hold tender cuts of meat. And you'd probably feel pretty tense if you were stuck on one of those. How about a death nail? I heard somebody say this the other day. This is the death nail for that. It's not a nail, it's a knell. A knell is the sound that a bell makes. It'd be the sound of any bell, but the word it originally referred to the solemn bell that rang after a funeral. A death knell specifically marked a person's death. And the phrase eventually caught on to describe a figurative marker for the end of anything. That is the death knell for Alabama football when Vanderbilt beat them. That was the death knell. A lot of things can have a business can have a death knell. A relationship can have a death knell. That was the death knell. But sometimes people say death nail instead. And these days, the general public doesn't really know what a knell is, so I guess they swap it for something they do know. But a nail is a natural fit, I guess, for a couple of reasons. One, nail sounds a lot like Nell. And two, it features the word nail, like the final nail in the coffin, which is another death-related expression about the end of something. So, to finish us off, here are some that I didn't research these to find out the beginnings and all like that, but I just listed some. And if you have some, if you're watching and you have some, send them to us, and we'll repeat them. But how about, and I knew a lady who said this, and she said it all the time. And if she hadn't been a lady, I'd have probably hit her, because this just drove me nuts. For all intensive purposes. For all intensive purposes. No, the phrase is for all intents and purposes. For all intensive purposes. How about chalk it up? Just chalk it up to so-and-so. No, it's chalk it up. Even though I guess chalk it up could work, you know, if you're going to write it up on the blackboard, we're going to chalk it up. But the thing is, chalk it up. How about, I heard somebody say this, and I went, a clown? Man, I am happy as a clown. No, it's clam. It's clam. And I don't see many happy clowns now. I mean, clowns are not, clowns are not what I grew up with. I mean, I grew up with some little funny party animal thing, you know, making balloon animals and a little, you know, I grew up with Bozo the Clown and Ronald McDonald, not these serial killer clowns. Sheesh. But one of the stupidest things I ever heard anybody say was, we said, hey, if you want to take your kids over there, there's a clown right around the corner. She said, is it a real clown or somebody just dressed up like a clown? How about deep-seated? It was deep-seated. S-E-E-D-E-D. It was deep-seated. No, it's deep-seated. It's deep-seated. A deep-seated anger. Has nothing to do with planting or plowing. How about hurtle along? That car was hurtling along. And you know, imagine a car. Now it's hurtle. Hurtling along. This is a good one. For him, it was a last-stitch effort. Last stitch. It was just a last-stitch effort. I guess if you say it fast, that's kind of what it can sound like, but it's a last-ditch effort. I want to research that one, find out where did last ditch come from. But anyway, it's not last stitch. How about she's coming down the pipe? No, it's a pike. We're coming down the pike, not coming down the pipe. Well, we have a hard road to hoe. If you're hoeing in the road, it is going to be hard, especially if it's paved. It's a hard row to hoe. A hard row to hoe. How about, and he got him within a hair's breadth. I guess that would be like a hair, H-A-R-E, if you're saying a hair's breadth. But it's a hair's breadth. Like the distance between hairs, or just that like a hair could barely, man, he won by a hair's breadth. Let's see, I already told you charting a new course and charting a new course. Oh, you know, the lady who said, what was the one that I said at first? What was the one that I was talking about? Roll it back. Yeah, it's the lady that said for all intensive purposes. She also said, she would also say, besides saying that she had to get her crystal out for Thanksgiving, she would also say, at her work, they are just finishing up their physical year. So, anybody send any in, Matt? They're just too busy just laughing. So, I don't know. That's what we got for today. And Thursday we're not doing a blue plate. Thursday I'm in Colorado. Let me tell you something I was thinking about before we go. I had this thought watching Bill Gaither. Because, Bill, 90 years old, he's got more energy than anybody I know. He walks 10,000 steps a day. You know how your phone does your steps? Let me just tell you something. If you're going to walk 10,000 steps a day, it ain't going to be by accident. I mean, you got to do that. I mean, you've got to say, I'm going to walk 10,000 and then check it, because you're not just going to slip up and, wow, I walked 10,000 steps today. That's just not going to happen. And so somewhere along the line, he decided, he was going to eat this and not eat that, and he was going to walk 10,000 steps a day. And I mean, here's a 90-year-old guy that is sharp as a tack, and energy and all that. So my original thought was this, and then I'll unpack it for you. My original thought was, when we're young, we look like our parents. But when we're old, we look like our decisions. Because when you're young, even as you're growing, when you're young, you tend to look like your parents. But as you get older, we look more and more like our decisions. What is our diet? What do we eat? I mean, did you lay out in the sun in your 30s with baby oil on? Did you use sunscreen? How much do you exercise? Do you not exercise? Do you go to the dentist? Do you get physical checkups? I mean, how do your relationships look? Or how's your financial pace? But as we get older, we look more and more like our decisions. And I thought about that regarding Bill, because he's 90 and he really looks like his decisions now. I mean, he is really reflecting that. But I also thought the same is true for businesses. When businesses are young, they look like the businesses that they're modeled after, usually. I mean, somebody opens up a restaurant, it looks like a lot of different restaurants. Now, then they can make decisions to make that look different, feel different, act different, taste different. But I also thought it's true of our country. Because when our country was born, we looked like our parents. We looked like we talked with a British accent. We ate the same food. We wore the same clothes. We even had the same laws. But after 250 years, whether you like it or don't, you can definitely say we look like our decisions now. So, whether that's good news or bad news to you, that's the last thing I'll tell you. I think hopefully we've got some decisions going that'll reshape and continue to shape us toward what we want. Whether it's our personal lives, our businesses, our relationships, or the country. When you're young, you look like your parents. When you're old, you look like your decisions. See you next time.